Okay, let's dig into this Bob Woodward holding the tapes for too long discussion that's happening. Earlier in the show, I told you about the audio taped revelations that were released yesterday by journalist Bob Woodward. This is sort of part of his new book release, Rage, where he cites a lot of these recorded conversations in the book. He also has released many of those audio tapes, and they are shocking. Donald Trump knew in February that the coronavirus was far more dangerous than he's ever really admitted. But he was certainly downplaying it during February, publicly saying, we've got 5 cases, we've got 15, it will soon be 0. While privately, as he said to Bob Woodward on February 7th and around that time, this is very serious. Trump at the time thought it was airborne. Trump thought it was hitting more than just people who were older or sicker. It is outrageous. People died as a result of how Donald Trump handled this publicly. Many people, there's no question about it. Bob Woodward's investigative reporting continues to break news. He's had an incredible career. No question about that. But the question that is being asked is, if Bob Woodward had gone public with that information months ago, instead of now to sell a book, could lives have been saved? In other words, knowing in March that Donald Trump was still publicly downplaying the virus, and knowing that in February, privately, he had acknowledged how dangerous it was, should Bob Woodward have said, I've got to release these audio tapes now, because it could save lives? And indeed, there is a ton of blowback against Bob Woodward now arguing exactly that he should have blown the whistle and he should have said, listen, Trump is saying something publicly. I have him on tape saying something very different privately. Some examples. John Stanton, the former Washington bureau chief for BuzzFeed, tweeted, quote, there is no ethical or moral defense of Woodward's decision to not publish these tapes as soon as they were made. If there was any chance it could save a single life, he was obligated to do so. Bob Woodward put making money over his moral and professional duty. Jessica Huseman, a reporter for ProPublica, tweeted similarly, quote, how differently might Trump supporters have acted if this whole time they knew that he knew COVID was a serious threat? Woodward could have made that happen in February. Jose Antonio Vargas, a filmmaker and former reporter for the Washington Post, tweeted, quote, if journalism is a public trust, a trust that has consistently eroded, and Bob Woodward is an associate editor at the Washington Post, why did Woodward sit on this information while Americans suffered and died? Now, Bob Woodward was asked about that exact decision in a brief interview he did with the Associated Press. And Bob Woodward's reaction was he needed time to ensure that Donald Trump's remarks were accurate. Now, that sounds weird to me. It's weird to me that for months, Bob Woodward needed to confirm that coronavirus really was deadly, as Donald Trump told him it was on February 7th. That's weird. But what would be a better counter argument? There are a few. Let's examine them. David Moranis, who's an investigative journalist and an associate editor at the Washington Post, tweeted, quote, I agree completely and am puzzled by some of the short-sighted thinking on this by people with whom I often agree. The argument that lives might have been saved had Bob reported this earlier is ahistorical. The tapes are an invaluable public service. Another argument, this is Eric Wemple, a Washington Post media critic, who said, quote, if Trump thought Woodward, this is not part of the quote. Eric Wemple makes the argument that, quote, seeing a lot of arguments that Bob Woodward did something unethical or untoward in holding on to his scoop about Trump's admission that he played down the coronavirus. I disagree with the criticism. Woodward is a book author, and the implicit understanding with his sources is that he'll interview them again and again and again until he can stitch together something authoritative in book form. So where do I come down on this? I believe that the strongest counter argument is that it is very plausible that Donald Trump never would have been interviewed by Bob Woodward. In other words, he never would have accepted sitting down with Bob Woodward if he had known that Bob Woodward was going to publish some of this stuff right away. I think that that's a realistic thing. If Bob Woodward says, I want to interview you, but I might just publish this stuff next week, Trump probably refuses the interview. The pretext of accepting the interview likely included the belief that this would not be published until it came out in a book months later. Now, Bob Woodward could have made the decision, even though my intent was not to publish this stuff right away, this is of such public health importance. This is of such national importance that I have to go public with this. That's something that Bob Woodward could have done. The question then becomes, would it actually have saved lives? I don't know that it would have. Now, let me walk you through my thinking. It seems obvious. If Donald Trump had publicly taken the virus seriously starting in February, rather than denying its seriousness, a lot of his followers would have taken it more seriously, and thus fewer people would have died. That, I think, is true. The problem is, what we're talking about is not Trump publicly taking it more seriously. What we're talking about is, in March, for example, Bob Woodward blowing the whistle and saying, hey, Trump's lying. I have him on tape. I caught him red-handed. I don't believe that would have made a difference to Trump's followers. And why don't I believe that? Because it hasn't made a difference so far. Trump has gotten caught red-handed doing everything you can imagine, and his supporters, by and large, have not punished him. Nothing happens. Now, we'll see in just over 7 weeks whether in total Trump is held accountable for this disastrous 4 years. But I have a hard time imagining that even if Bob Woodward did go public in March with this, saying, whoa, hold on a second, stop the clock. I have audio. Trump knows this is serious. Trump would come out and just insult everybody. Kayleigh McEnany would have come out and done a press briefing and come up with some rationale for why this is not a big deal. And then people would have moved on to the next scandal, sort of how we are now moving on to this one from dead soldiers or suckers and losers from just a few days ago. So if I were Bob Woodward, me personally, I would have come forward because I would want to clear my own conscience. That's me. Do I think it would have made a substantive difference? I have a hard time thinking it would have, because it would be just like when any journalist comes out with anything about Donald Trump, his followers either don't believe it or ignore it or write it off or whatever. So if it were me, I would have come public because of my own conscience. I don't know that it really would have made a difference. We're going to explore this in more detail on the David Pakman Show Instagram. I hope you are following us there at David Pakman Show. We're going to take a quick break. And next, I am going to dive into some new policy proposals from Joe Biden. We will look at a very strange interview that Donald Trump gave to Sean Hannity last night, and so much more. One of our sponsors today is Monk Pack Keto Granola Bars, and they are giving you 20% off when you go to davidpakman.com/snack and use the coupon code Pakman. You know, a lot of these low-carb snack bars have a reputation for not tasting great, but I can tell you from trying these myself that that is not the case with the Monk Pack Keto Granola Bars. They taste just as good, if not better, than the sugar-filled, chewy granola bars that many of us love. But these contain only 1 gram of sugar, 2 net carbs, only 140 calories. They're completely plant-based and gluten-free. Great for anybody following a low-carb diet, but also perfect for anybody like me who's just trying to reduce sugar intake, which I think is a good thing. I've been working on a box of these at home. They're delicious, soft, chewy texture, bunch of great flavors, including peanut butter, coconut cocoa chip, which is my personal favorite. It's great for a quick breakfast, a snack in the afternoon. I have been loving these. You can get to their website by going to davidpakman.com/snack. The link is under this video, and you'll get 20% off when you use the coupon code Pakman.